If you haven't heard about this by now, it's probably because there was a gag order placed on Congress and the one senator from Chicago, but nevertheless, before I start pulling out receipts, I will share to you what NESARA law is.
And word late tonight that 2 suspects are in FBI custody after a truckload of explosives was discovered around the George Washington Bridge. That bridge links New York to New Jersey over the Hudson River. Whether the discovery of those explosives had anything to do with other events of the day is unclear, but the FBI has 2 suspects in hand, said the truck load of explosives, enough explosives were in the truck to do great damage to the George Washington Bridge. But they arrested the 2 suspects and they are questioning them as we speak.
As you may know by now, Ron Paul, not really one to mince words. The straight-talking Republican presidential candidate, though, got some boos, few jeers at the CNN Tea Party debate a couple of nights ago. This happened during a heated exchange about 9/11 and what was behind the terror attacks. Take a listen.
And they want to kill us because of who we are and what we stand for. And we stand for American exceptionalism. We stand for freedom and opportunity for everybody around the world. And I am not ashamed to do that.
As long as this country follows that idea, we're going to be under a lot of danger. Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda have been explicit. They have been explicit, and they wrote and said that we attacked America because you had bases on our Holy Land in Saudi Arabia. You do not give Palestinians a fair treatment, and you have been bombing. I didn't say that. I'm trying to get you to understand what the motive was behind the bombing.
And Congressman Paul joins me now live from the Capitol. Sir, thank you for being here. So let's just start with that. Are people misinterpreting or maybe even oversimplifying what you're saying? Because some people took your response as saying the U.S. brought 9/11 on itself. Is that what you were saying?
Obviously not, because I'm an American, you're an American, I don't blame you, but I do blame bad policy, and there's quite a bit of difference. But you know, what I'm saying is not new or strange. It's been around a long time. The CIA is actually the one that, you know, introduced the term blowback, and the 9/11 Commission acknowledged this. As a matter of fact, after 9/11, we removed that base from Saudi Arabia. So it's nothing new. But I think if you ignore the real cause and claim that we're being attacked because we're free and prosperous, we're missing the boat. As a physician, I always have to know the cause of the disease to correct it, and to ignore the cause doesn't solve our problems whatsoever. But to turn this around and say that we're exceptional and we have to do this, I think we are exceptional. I just resent and resist the temptation to force our exceptionalism on other people through force. Once you do that, you lose all your credibility as being exceptional.
But haven't Al-Qaeda, bin Laden in particular, in a letter he wrote to the United States, he did talk about the Palestinians and how there was a lack of support for them. But he also mentioned America's freedoms and what we're allowed to do. He mentioned, I mean, things like gambling and how women flaunt themselves around. He did mention some of those freedoms and wanted to impose Islam on the rest of the world. So isn't that the freedoms the United States have? Don't you acknowledge that bin Laden himself has also said, this is why we attacked you as well?
Well, there's only been a couple of individuals who have studied this. Michael Schur, who was the CIA agent that studied bin Laden more than anybody else, along with Robert Pape, who has investigated and detailed every suicide terrorist attack that he could find. And he says 98% of the suicide terrorism attacks against us, the main motivation was occupation, and religious beliefs had nothing to do with it.
But we're talking about 9/11.
Wait. But you don't see suicide terrorists coming out of Iran, and they're radical Islamists, but they do not come from Saudi Arabia, but they come from places that feel abused, and they did. I mean, 14 out of the 19 came from Saudi Arabia because of the bases there and our puppet government there. And the CIA was aware of this, know about it, and for us to just say and be in denial and say it has nothing to do with it, and that they come here because why don't they go after the countries that are freer than us? Why don't they go after Switzerland, or why don't they go after Sweden or Ireland or somebody? No, they don't attack those countries because they're free and prosperous. So it makes no sense, because we have to, in order to justify our policy in the Middle East, Islam has to be the enemy, and I think that's wrong. There are radicals in the Islamic community and the Muslim community, but that is not the sole reason why we have this problem.
The hijackers were organized into 4 teams, each led by a pilot-trained hijacker with 3 or 4 muscle hijackers who were trained to help subdue the pilots, passengers, and crew.
My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger. On my orders, coalition forces have begun striking selected targets of military importance to undermine Saddam Hussein's ability to wage war. These are opening stages of what will be a broad and concerted campaign. To all the men and women of the United States Armed Forces now in the Middle East, the peace of a troubled world and the hopes of an oppressed people now depend on you. That trust is well placed.
So you would keep troops in Iraq after this year?
I would take the oil.
I don't understand how you would take the, does that mean keeping troops there, or staying involved in Iraq?
You heard me, I would take the oil.
The people you liberate will witness the honorable and decent spirit of the American military.
So you will guarantee that we will have a presence, that we will spend money, send troops, do whatever it takes in order to secure access to oil?
Money. We will make a fortune. We will make money. They have $15 trillion worth of oil in Iraq. 15 trillion. We will make a lot of money. We will not lose that oil.
We come to Iraq with respect for its citizens, for their great civilization, and for the religious faiths they practice. We have no ambition in Iraq except to remove a threat and restore control of that country to its own people.
So your Middle East policy is basically guided by our interest in oil?
My Middle East, yeah, I always heard that. I always heard that when we went into Iraq, we went in for the oil. I said, that sounds smart. Why don't we just take over the oil? We should take it over.
We should come in.
Well, I don't want to give it to Iran.
Should we be running Iraq right now?
We should be running the oil. You know, when they announced the war, and everybody smiles, oh, except the smart people. The smart people don't smile. See, when they announced the war with Iraq, a few very smart people said, oh, that war is really smart because we're going to take over the oil. Unfortunately, Bush didn't have that in mind. You know, in the old days, you'd have a war, and you'd win the war. And to the victor belong the spoils. You know that.
We have no ambition in Iraq except to remove a threat and restore control of that country to its own people.
Look at Iraq. Look at the mess we have after spending $2 trillion, thousands of lives, wounded warriors all over the place who I love, okay, all over. We have nothing. And I said, keep the oil. And we should have kept the oil, believe me. We should have kept the oil.
The people you liberate will witness the honorable and decent spirit of the American military.
When I heard that we were first going into Iraq, some very smart people told me, well, we're actually going for the oil. And I said, all right, I get that. I get that. There's nothing else. I get it. We didn't take the oil. 1.5 trillion, we should take it and pay ourselves back. What are we doing? What are we doing?
We will bring freedom to others, and we will prevail. May God bless our country and all who defend her.
Now he's singing like a motherfucker. Got your name just a ringing like a motherfucker. And these niggas still hanging with this motherfucker. And the game done got shanker than a motherfucker. Because they singing like a motherfucker. Got your name just a ringing like a motherfucker.